I'm Natalie Gray, and welcome back to my channel. In this episode of what we're going to do today is I'm talking about the largest U.S. naval disaster. Anytime I talk disaster, most of my students went, oh my God, death, more death. How disgusting is it going to be? And when I say biggest U.S. naval disaster, most people say, I've seen the Titanic. This is not the Titanic. That is not the largest U.S. naval disaster. The largest U.S. naval disaster is actually a Civil War ship explosion with the steamboat Sultana. Now, most of you are like, the what? Yeah, the Sultana. Why haven't you heard about the Sultana? Well, it exploded just days after President Lincoln was assassinated. Once he's assassinated, the news, the reporters, the telegraphs are full of, where are his assassins? Are we going to find his assassins? This is how he died. This is where he's going on his funeral procession throughout the U.S. You have the Confederates saying, we didn't do it. We didn't kill him. It's not us. Don't hang us. So no one's really talking about the Sultana in the press. Additionally, after 4 years of civil war and massive tens of thousands of casualties in one battle, the U.S. is just weary of death tolls. So the Sultana, with its death toll, is actually 1,800 people. All of these are Union prisoners of war who've been released, or almost all of them have been released from the Confederate prisons and returning home. No one just had the heart to listen to this steam war. So the Sultana is a forgotten disaster, and ironically, it's the largest disaster in U.S. naval history. Now, with the Sultana, how did it really get its start? Well, it started as your typical Mississippi River steamboat. If you've read Mark Twain, if you haven't, you really should. The Mississippi is the U.S. highway. Everyone's moving by river because it's faster than foot. We don't have cars, we don't have interstates, so the quickest way to get anywhere is by river transport. And the Mississippi and its tributaries make up the largest river network in the United States. So the Sultana is just one more steamboat on the Mississippi River and using those Mississippi River routes, whether it's for passengers or for cargo. Now, the Sultana was launched during the Civil War in 1862 by the Union. So it's a Union steamship. It's not overly large and it's not luxurious. It's got 4 decks, 2 smokestacks, 4 boilers, and that's kind of important because boilers means it's steam powered, and a paddle wheel. Not a large opulent ship. The Sultana was originally designed to carry 367 people, 85 crew members, and cargo. Sugar, food, military supplies, Union officers up and down the western front of the Civil War, that type of thing. It's not a luxury boat, and it's not even really meant for 1,800 people if you've already done that math. Now, the Sultana was going up and down its route with its main port of New Orleans, which is at the mouth of the Mississippi. Once the Union captured New Orleans and then later Vicksburg under Grant, the Sultana was free to go up and down the Mississippi River, taking with it its crew and cargo. Once Lincoln is assassinated, Captain Mason, who is the captain of the Sultana, is in Illinois. Yes, the Mississippi River goes all the way to Illinois and connects with the Ohio River Valley. While in Illinois, the captain of the riverboat decides he's going to pick up as many newspapers as he can. So as he goes on a southward voyage down the Mississippi, he's going to sell all those newspapers. Lincoln's dead! Don't believe me? Buy a newspaper. It's only double your normal price because I've got the newspaper. I've got the latest news that you don't have. So this guy we're going to go with enterprising as he's increasing the prices and moving things downriver. We also see other enterprising individuals like the quartermaster of Vicksburg, and that is Colonel Hatch. Hatch is corrupt, for lack of a better word, because we don't want to say just how corrupt, because we can't prove how corrupt he was. But as quartermaster of Vicksburg and that's Vicksburg, Mississippi, at the end of the Civil War, he's in charge of getting all the Union POWs home. Hatch, when he sees the captain of the Sultana as he pulls into port on his southern way home to New Orleans, approaches Captain Mason and says, "Look, I got a deal for you. It's a sweet deal. The U.S. government is paying $5 per soldier, $10 per officer." And in that day, that's a lot of money. Now, if you take 1,400 people with you, I will guarantee you a nice, sizable extra fee. We call that a kickback today. It's very illegal. And, well, the Sultana Captain Mason decides, sounds great with me. Let me get to New Orleans. You can get everybody together for the trip north. And when I come back, I'll stop. We'll pack them all in and we'll go on our way. And we'll all make money. So the guys, have their handshake agreement. Mason continues south, delivering the newspapers on Lincoln's assassination. Picks up cargo and people. Extra people for his trip north. As you know, Lincoln assassinated April 15th, 1865. It's April 1865 on the Mississippi River. Hatch is getting as many POWs together as he can to go home. Now, most of these POWs are from the Union, places like Kentucky, West Virginia, Indiana, Michigan. They're POWs. Now, when you think prisoners, they're just prisoners. That of war for POW is really important here because these guys have been in prison in Confederate prisons. So Union soldiers surviving Confederate prison. If you have no background in the Civil War, this is one place you never want to be. Most soldiers die in Confederate prison. They are undermanned, underfed, overpopulated prisons with dirty water and no place to poo. So that means with no place to poo, you're pooing close to your water, which means you're drinking dirty water, and that's going to make you really, really sick. The worst of these prisons, or at least for these guys, was Andersonville out of Georgia. Andersonville had about 40 to 45,000 prisoners. Of that, about 25% died. The survivors of Andersonville stated in their diaries they would have rather died than lived at Andersonville. That's how horrible it is. People were starving to death. They were living in water outside. And if you've ever been to Georgia, that's very humid and it rains almost every summer day. So mosquitoes, heat, bad water, you're living in it and you're pooping in it. Many guys actually stated in their diaries that if it was just too untenable for you, and for many it was, they would start drinking the dirty water just to commit suicide. At the end of the Civil War, Andersonville is so full, they start releasing prisoners a little early. These men walk across 4 states, and these are hostile Confederate states who are not happy about losing the Civil War, from Georgia, from the coast, all the way through the deep south to Vicksburg, Mississippi. You survive that, you've walked across 4 states where everybody hates you, and you get told you're going home. These guys are relieved. They're happy. Like, oh dear God, finally. There are some instances where family from up north came south to help these guys get home because they're starving, they're sick, they need help. So there are instances that we know of families being on the Sultana to help their husbands, brothers, uncles, fathers, whatever, make it home. Now, Mason, the Sultana captain, sailing back down to New Orleans, doesn't really think about the summer or spring melts. With the spring and summer melts, this is when the Mississippi floods because the mountains start seeing their snows melt. That comes down the river, and almost all these rivers in the U.S. hit the Mississippi. So the river swells, it floods. And in 1865, it's a major flood. With these major floods, you're getting swift currents. You're getting debris. Mason's not thinking about, getting his ship caught or fighting against a strong current. He's thinking about all the money he's going to make. $5 for soldiers, $10 for officers, and as a kickback, he is giving money back to Colonel Hatch, the quartermaster, for giving him all this extra money. Yeah, we're breaking the law. We're putting too many people, overpopulating the boat. Doesn't matter. Here's a little money. Overlook that. I'll share the cash with you. Now, it is April 21st as Mason's going to New Orleans. When he gets there, sells his newspapers. He takes on, the sources vary, 75 to 100 passengers. For giggles, I'm just going to say 80, 85. He also starts to fill up his cargo. He starts chugging back up the Mississippi when he realizes, oh, yeah, the current's a little rough. It'll be fine. Until about an hour outside of Vicksburg, one of his 4 boilers springs a leak. Well, we'll just check it out at Vicksburg. He pulls up at the dock at Vicksburg, calls for a mechanic, and he goes to see the quartermaster and says, start loading them up. We're going to go. We're going to make us some money. Because I'm going to drop them off, I'm going to come back. We'll make a lot of money doing this. So the Sultana is being loaded. 1,400 men who have somehow survived Andersonville and a few other smaller Confederate prisons, packing themselves onto the Sultana. Now you got the 85, basically about 85 crew, and you're going to get about 400 family members and other passengers packing onto the Sultana. As this is happening, we do have a Vicksburg mechanic looking at the Sultana boiler. When he looks at the boiler, he's like, look, this is a major repair. You've popped a seam. You need to actually replace the entire boiler because it could explode. Because you're right here, you're by the paddle wheel, you're by the smokestacks. This could be a catastrophe. And Captain Mason says, no, man, screw that. I've got people on board. Just patch it. Throw a Band-Aid on it, and let's go. Today, we would probably say, just throw some duct tape on it. We'll be okay. We've all seen those cars. We got to fix the bumper. Duct tape it and forget it. That's not quite the words I hear at the South, but, duct tape and forget. That's what they're doing to the Sultana boiler. After the mechanic said, this is a recipe for disaster. Mason doesn't care. Hatch doesn't care. We're making money. Let's go, go, go. So the mechanic throws a patch on it. The boat has, or I should say the steamboat, just to be clear, has 1,800 people on it. The mechanic leaves, and Mason starts chugging up the Mississippi River. The current is incredibly strong. The boat is so overpopulated, the decks are actually sagging. On the last known photograph, you can see the decks ringed by people, and these are the top 2 decks. They can't get out any further. It's literally standing room only for a trip that's going to take you a couple days. These guys don't care. They're getting home. That's all they care about. And all Mason and Hatch presumably care about is the money they're going to get. Now, at their last successful stop, Mason pulls into Memphis, Tennessee, drops off some cargo, gets a little more, starts chugging up, and about 2 o'clock in the morning, the Sultana explodes. It's a major explosion. Everybody is asleep, at least some of those. And if you're tired enough, you can sleep standing up. It's 2 o'clock in the morning, it's quiet. With the explosion, the boiler's right there by all the coal, because it is steam powered, and that's what's powering these boilers is coal. The explosion rips the boat basically in half. The explosion goes up, the steam stacks fall into the Sultana, basically breaking it apart, going through all 4 decks, hitting people. The paddle comes apart. People are being thrown off the boat by the force of the explosion. They're being thrown off the boat because of the catastrophe happening with the smokestacks falling down. Some people, especially on the lower decks, never really had a chance. It's icy cold April water with a rip current. You're half asleep, you're starved, you're exhausted. Let's say you recovered from dysentery. Are you going to be able to swim in that water? You're disoriented, you don't know what happened. What are you going to do? Most people are going to drown within the first few minutes. Others who are able to overcome the catastrophe pretty quickly, or who are just lucky, start grabbing driftwood. Parts of the boat that exploded that's floating by. And they're grabbing onto it and literally going downstream with the current. As they go downstream, they pass the docks at Memphis. About 2 o'clock in the morning, people are screaming, "Save us! Oh dear God, save us!" The Memphis docks are like, "Are those people? Oh my God, those are people!" And they begin an immediate rescue attempt. You have several steamboats going out. One, very famously named the Jenny Lind, goes out and tries to save as many people as possible. But sadly, it's not very many people. 1,800 people are presumed dead that night. A few are going to die a little later once they've been fished out of the water. One person who does die with the Sultana, Captain Mason, so if you feel very vindicated with that, hold on. We still have a trial for him. But with this explosion, people are just shocked. It barely makes the back page of newspapers because we still haven't caught John Wilkes Booth. What day did the Sultana sink? It's April 27th, 1865, the very early hours. We're still worried about Booth. Seriously, still worried about Booth. Now, after the explosion and after things start to settle down with Booth's assassin being killed in a barn, the trial going on where the 8 conspirators are put on trial and for executed, including the first woman, for the federal government to execute for a crime. Johnson's administration starts getting settled, and they begin to investigate the Sultana disaster. What caused it? Well, a lot of people want to say Hatch. Hatch is the problem. Hatch is the one who approached Mason and said, let's make a deal, let's overpopulate the boat, let's all make money, and I'll make a little, cut of your profits and a kickback. Hatch, even though he was subpoenaed repeatedly, never stood trial for his participation in the disaster. A lot of that is because he had a lot of highly placed friends in the government as well as in the military. So Hatch is this really slippery fish who is never truly held accountable for his participation in the disaster. Now, Mason, he did die. People did investigate. Why did he do this? Because everyone wants to know why. Why did you let 1,800 people die? Mason had tons of debts. He was trying to pay off his debts. And we've all done stupid stuff when we're really in debt. You haven't eaten in 2 days. How hungry are you? And what are you going to do with food to buy a burger or a pizza or whatever it is you want to eat? Hatch kind of caught Mason at a bad time. Now, with the Sultana, what about the shipwreck? Can we go back and look at it? Because in the investigations, there are rumors and a deathbed confession of a Confederate conspiracy to blow up the Sultana with a torpedo. Let's blow it up. Oh, let's get it. Long live the South. That, even though it's been investigated, kind of dismissed because these are deathbed confessions of a Confederate who just wanted to make his mark, as most historians believe. With the wreck itself, well, the Mississippi, with all the flooding, has actually changed course since 1865. When a river floods, it'll start going to the low ground. When you flood, you're taking trees, debris, and tons of silt. If you don't know what silt is, that's dirt. So you start to silt up or dirt up part of the river. So the river starts moving, and the river's moved about 2 miles off the course that it was in 1865. So the Sultana today lies basically in Arkansas. I know that sounds weird, but remember the state of Arkansas is right there on the Mississippi River, and it's under dirt. How are we going to find all the various pieces? Because we can find a couple of decks, but how far down the Mississippi River, 2 miles out, are we going to find enough pieces of the Sultana to archaeologically prove the boiler exploded? Not just relying on eyewitness testimony from the mechanic and a few of the survivors. What happened? Well, it exploded. It sounded like it came from the boilers. So with the Sultana, it's this huge tragedy. No one's really punished for it. Kind of like the Titanic. No one was really punished for that. And you get 1,800 people who just die. And their deaths pretty much disappear. Basically from history. No one wants to hear about it. It's just too sad. There are small groups, however, that try to keep the Sultana's memory alive. Some of those are the children of the survivors. If you're lucky enough to find a book of memoirs that mention the Sultana, definitely read it, because you're probably going to read about Andersonville as well, and not just being blown up on the Sultana. But these people do occasionally have get-togethers where they say, this is my great-grandfather's or my great-granduncle's diary. This is what he said about it. Here are some newspaper articles that you could probably never get anywhere else, and let's talk about it. And other than that, a small little plaque kind of exists where you can say, oh, here, don't forget about the Sultana. It's nowhere near where the explosion was, but who's really going to know what that plaque means? Because it's forgotten history. So next time I'll go over something new, and if you're looking for information on the Sultana, I'll put some links below where you can see where I got my information. See you next time.